The most heinous acts are those that destroy lives and split apart families. This includes child abuse, rape, and murder. Those responsible for these horrible crimes must be brought to justice. The wheels of justice spin in a court of law, and it is here that the guilty are made to answer for their deeds. Nothing less than the full force of the law being applied to the culprits is due to the victims and their loved ones. But what you're about to see are some of the rarest cases in history. Their crimes are so barbaric that the criminals got the worst punishment for their deeds. And believe me, some sentences are really beyond our imagination. So, stay tuned until the end of the video. Timothy McVeigh, an ex-army soldier and security guard, parked a leased Ryder truck in front of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in downtown Oklahoma City early on April 1995. He was going for a massacre. A potent bomb consisting of a lethal concoction of diesel fluid, fertilizer for crops, and other chemicals were hidden inside his car. McVeigh exited the vehicle, secured the door, and walked towards his escape vehicle. Then he lit a second-timed fuse. The bomb went off at precisely 9:02 a.m. The surroundings quickly took on the appearance of a combat zone. A third of the structure was in ruins, with several levels having been flattened like pancakes. More than 300 surrounding buildings suffered damage or were completely destroyed, along with dozens of burned-out automobiles. Even worse, there were 168 fatalities, including 19 children and many hundred more injuries. In the history of the country, it was the worst act of domestic terrorism. The media and many Americans quickly concluded that the assault was the work of Middle Eastern terrorists since it followed the World Trade Center bombing in New York 2 years earlier. Meanwhile, the FBI hurried to the area, joined the rescue operations, and started gathering information. There were hints hidden behind the concrete and twisted steel. The FBI was committed to locating them. It was fast and easy. The Ryder truck's back axle was discovered on April 20, and the vehicle identifying number it contained led to a body shop in Junction City, Kansas. The shop staff swiftly assisted the FBI in creating a composite drawing of the individual who had hired the vehicle. Agents displayed the artwork around the community, and Tim McVeigh was identified by hotel staff. On April 21, immediate phone contact with the Bureau's Criminal Justice Information Services Division in West Virginia produced the startling realization that McVeigh was already incarcerated. An alert Oklahoma State trooper had stopped him approximately 80 miles north of Oklahoma City after seeing a missing license plate on the front of his yellow Mercury Marquis. McVeigh was detained and had a hidden firearm. Only 90 minutes had passed after the blast. Then, the evidence started to mount. Agents discovered chemical residue from the explosion on McVeigh's clothing, as well as business card with the strangely written words, "TNT at $5 a stick, need more" on it. They discovered McVeigh's radical political views and his rage over the events in Waco 2 years ago. They learned that Michael Fortier was aware of the bomb plot and that Terry Nichols, a friend of Timothy McVeigh, assisted in making the device. Although the bombing was soon resolved, the investigation was one of the most thorough in FBI history. To ensure that every hint was discovered and every criminal was found, no effort was spared. By the end of the investigation, the Bureau had conducted 28,000 interviews, pursued over 43,000 leads, gathered 3.5 tons of evidence, and looked over almost 1 billion bits of data. In the end, the administration that McVeigh despised and intended to overthrow quickly apprehended him and successfully prosecuted him and his accomplices. McVeigh was put to death, and the Olympic Park bomber Eric Rudolph, the Unabomber Ted Kaczynski, and the Pakistani inmate Ramzi Youssef, who was found guilty of the 1993 World Trade Center attack on the Twin Towers, all reside in the same Colorado cell block as Nichols. Despite his last-minute attempts to back out of the attack on a federal building, he was given 161 life sentences plus 9,300 years without the possibility of a release. On December 14, 1994, a jury found Charles Scott Robinson guilty of 6 counts of sexually abusing children. The jury was unable to impose a life sentence without the possibility of release. Therefore, they suggested that he serve 5,000 years in jail. Robinson received a sentence of 30,000 years from District Judge Dan Owens, who decided to impose it consecutively rather than concurrently. This means that Robinson, who is only 30 years old, will not be eligible for parole until he is 108. Judge Owens said, "By doing that, I think I can assure that you will spend the rest of your natural life in the confines of the Department of Corrections." For burglary, attempted burglary, hiding stolen items, and possession of a stolen car, Robinson had previously received prior convictions. His 30,000-year sentence is the longest ever handed to a single individual on numerous offenses in U.S. history. At Robinson's trial, the jurors had shown displeasure about what they considered to be a light sentence. A teenage witness remembers seeing a beat-up 1991 Nissan pickup vehicle in the location of the crime on the day that 13-year-old Ben Ownby vanished from Beaufort, Missouri in 2007. Not one, but two kidnapped young boys were miraculously rescued as a result of his reporting it to the FBI and local law enforcement authorities. Ownby, who had been missing for only a few days, and Sean Hornbeck, who had been kidnapped from Richwoods, Missouri, nearly 5 years earlier when he was only 11 years old. Two Kirkwood, Missouri police officers were responding to an unrelated complaint at a neighboring apartment complex a few days after Ownby vanished when they spotted a truck that matched the witness's description. They chose to look in on it. The apartment complex where the truck was discovered was under police surveillance. Michael J. Devlin soon showed up and started bringing out the garbage. Devlin was known to the authorities as the manager of a nearby pizza shop. The truck belonged to him, but Devlin resisted the police's request to examine his flat, acting uneasy. Authorities visited Devlin's place of business the following day, nevertheless, unfazed. Michael Devlin was prepared to confess when police came to the location of the business where he worked, according to the crime museum. He had seized Sean Hornbeck, who he claimed to be his godson, in addition to the recent kidnapping of Ben Ownby. Hornbeck had not expired. Devlin was able to conceal his wrongdoing over time by occasionally referring to Hornbeck as his son or a family acquaintance. Soon after Hornbeck was kidnapped in 2002, Devlin made an attempt to kill him, but gave up after hearing the lad beg for his life. He was imprisoned for 1 month. Devlin was sexually abused by Devlin throughout the years, and Devlin was later found guilty of the crime. It was horrifying to see Devlin try to allow the teenager to have a regular social life, to the extent that was feasible given the circumstances. Devlin sought a new victim via the Southern since Hornbeck became too old. The young guy recalled Devlin telling Ownby while they were both in prison, "You were just at the wrong place at the wrong time." Michael J. Devlin will spend the rest of his life in jail after being found guilty of, among other things, kidnapping and sexual assault. Due to the extensive media coverage of Ownby and Hornbeck's rescue more than a decade after Devlin was found guilty, a Canadian man suspected Devlin of being behind his own failed kidnapping attempt in 1998 and intended to file a criminal complaint. While serving his sentence for abduction, using a lethal weapon, and creating child pornography, Devlin has also faced threats to his life. His sentence consisted of 170 years for federal offenses and 74 life terms in all. As was reported by the St. Louis Post-Dispatch in 2011, a fellow convict wounded Devlin with 2 improvised ice picks fashioned from bits seized from a manual typewriter. Devlin's misdeeds, according to the assailant, were his inspiration. Michael J. Devlin made a full recovery from his wounds. At the Western Missouri Correctional Center in Cameron, Missouri, he is completing 74 life sentences plus 20 years. The path to justice is not always easy. Legal kinks and complexities can cause delays and annoyance. Nevertheless, regardless of how long it takes, the legal system and the judicial system must see that justice is done. It's the only way to sincerely commemorate the victims' memories and provide comfort to the families who have endured such a great deal of pain. So that concludes our video. What are your thoughts on it? Please share with us in the comment section below. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, and make sure to subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one. Until then, peace.